And screenshot's going to be
okay.
So far, so good. Okay, so we are live on YouTube.
All right, so we are also live on YouTube. Did we get a thumbs up here from anyone on TikTok yet? All right, so those of you tuning in for the first time here on TikTok, I want to also invite you to go over to my YouTube channel at Ask Ivy. All right, to check out the free mini classes. For those of you tuning in today through YouTube, I'm just waiting for that to officially register. If those of you tuning in through YouTube could give me a thumbs up on my audio and visual, that would be really helpful as well. Seems like everything's working, but I don't have any. There we go. Welcome, Nikki.
I didn't see anybody in TikTok.
Okay, so Nikki says she finally caught a live. Elaine, thank you for the thumbs up that we have audio. Good to see you. Welcome. Going to give this a second for a few people to tune in.
Stop TikTok. It's still not showing up.
That's fine. Let's try that again.
If that doesn't work, it'll admit it for sure.
No, I mean, you can leave it if it doesn't work. And they can just make sure it says in the bio that they can go to YouTube. All right, Kristen, welcome. Is that Christian? Christian, good to see you here on YouTube.
Here we go.
All right, so we've got TikTok working a little bit. They're cleaning their system today, so my account's been super nutty. For those of you that are tuning in through TikTok, I would highly recommend you just go over to YouTube at Ask Ivy before this starts acting up again. All right, and Paul, if you could post that to them, okay, to keep just sending them over. So just keep an eye on them. All right, very good. We've also got Mary, welcome here on YouTube. All right, so we are going to get right into this today. As soon as you give me the heads up, Polly. All right, very good. So welcome, everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people internationally, online, and everything ranging from psychic mediumship development to numerology, tarot, astrology, Reiki, paranormal work, cleansing, empathic awareness. We train children as well as adults. So we hope to see you at the school for a full list of classes. You can go to ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com, and that is in the bio. What you've got here tonight is one of my free mini classes. I do one free mini class per week since the pandemic hit. It's called the Quarantine Series. And so these classes are snippets of my full-length classes that you can get up on the website. And today we are talking about intuitive increases. Why and how does our intuition increase, and what exactly are we supposed to do with it once that happens? So I do want to ask everybody at this time, before we get into the curriculum, to give this video a thumbs up, hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe. We also have a free show every Wednesday called Ask Ivy, where I take your personal questions. And we have our Roots Revival Interfaith Church services that also go up here. We may also be putting up, I think, another video tomorrow. I know we just put one up about 2 days ago on the restoration project on the Victorian funeral home that we just purchased. So we are already in the mix of that. You can check out some really awesome videos here on that. If you guys want to become a member, it's always greatly appreciated. You can hit the join button to check out the 3 different tiers. And that would include things like behind the scenes extras, extra curriculum, direct spirit messages, your monthly horoscope. Okay, so if you're interested, hit that join button. We do appreciate donations here, so feel free. But also, I am going to be taking your questions and comments throughout the curriculum. If it doesn't fit in with what I'm talking about, Paul, my adorable producer, will just save those questions till the end. So feel free to post whatever experiences, curiosity you may have here with your development. How are you, Paul?
Great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to repeat again. TikTok is acting up today. I think they're cleansing the system. So if you guys are tuning in through TikTok and it's already seeming a little odd, get off of there, go over to YouTube and ask Ivy to watch the rest of this class. We good? All right, very good. So today we're talking about intuitive increases. Why and how does your intuition increase, and what exactly are you supposed to be doing with it? So I do want to explain. There are tribes, native tribes all over the world that take intuitive intelligence very seriously. Being intuitive, being a seer, being gifted, as they may say, is a sign that this person is meant to be a healer, a light worker, a spiritual leader. But also, these tribes understand that if this individual does not train in their intuition, if they don't eventually use it for the greater good, it will turn into darkness, paranormal problems, and mental illness. Okay, a great example of this is a friend of mine came from Africa. Both of his parents died, so he was split in his upbringing between two different tribes. And in each tribe, they understood, the elders understood the children that were born that were the seers. And if those children did not agree to train up in their intuitive intelligence, in their spiritual abilities, they had a welfare program set up for these kids, because when they reached a certain age, usually late teens, early 20s, they would end up mentally ill and fairly incapable of taking care of themselves. So they weren't going to force them into spiritual work, of course, but they had to have a backup plan if they didn't do it, because they would never really function out in society or within the tribe structure as a healthy, capable individual. Now, here in America, okay, and most other places in the world, let's face it, if we're intuitively intelligent, we get mislabeled as psychotic. We get medicated, we get institutionalized, and that system traps us into that debilitating state of mind. Mentally, emotionally, physically, we deteriorate. If you guys have not been tuning in the past couple months, check out my free mini classes here on YouTube in the playlist. One is The War on Intuition. We have a part 2 coming up for that in July. And the other one is Psychology, Therapy, and Spirituality, how they're intertwined. You need to get educated on your intuition, and you need to keep it safe and understand that it is sacred, it is part of your roots, and it is healthy and normal. Don't allow that to be stolen from you, and don't run away from it if you have them. It leads to a lot of mental problems, okay? So what I really want to do here today is to talk about these 10 most common intuitive increases, how you can plan for them. This will help you to understand, oh my God, that's what happened to me during that time, and to give you a little direction on how you can use it. But if you want to see the full training on this, you're going to go to Ivy Rivera, empathiceducator.com, and hit empathic awareness training. It's 2 hours of discussing this. Paul, if you could put that in the comments for them, yeah. Okay? This is just sort of a couple key points to that. All right, so number 1, you will have an increase with your intuition if you experience the death of a loved one, including pets, especially dogs, or if you're very, very close to your cat. But this seems to increase when it's a parent. It gets really intense if it were a child or a spouse. Okay. Again, death of a loved one is automatically going to increase your intuitive intelligence. And we need to remember that once it is increased, it can't go back. We can't shove it back in the magic bottle, in the genie bottle. We can't close Pandora's box. intuitive intelligence will only increase. Our only real option is to deal with it, to understand it, and to learn how to properly use it. So if you noticed after the funeral of a loved one, including a pet, that you were dreaming more vividly, you were having more prophecy about the future, maybe your house even felt like it took on some kind of paranormal activity, you became hypersensitive to lights and noise and other people's feelings, that was an increase with your intuitive intelligence. And it never stopped. You just probably adapted to it. I believe the purpose to this increase is to keep us connected with our loved ones. We aren't supposed to believe that life just ends and our spirits just dissolve and our souls cease to exist and we never see those people again. That's not at all what happens. And our body prepares us to communicate with these spirits once they pass on and cross over to the other side. So it's never meant to stop. Okay, if you guys want to learn more about that language, check out my class on here called Death Coaching. So we want to embrace the new abilities that we have and to understand that they are there in part to continue on with the communication with our loved ones. Helps us bridge that gap. Number 2, your intuition is going to increase if you are threatened with death, if you are somehow afraid from a situation that you may die or that others around you, especially in your inner circle, may die. Great example of this is COVID. The pandemic has literally triggered an international awakening. So when we look at people all over the world, they're becoming more spiritual. They're becoming more intuitive. We also see a lot of people losing their minds because they are pushing away the light. They are turning toward the darkness and the fear. But that's what death does. Death, or the threat of death, is like a big wake-up call for your intuitive intelligence. Number 3, if you have an increase with your empathic ability, okay, we have 4 different levels of empathic ability. And when we see an increase, especially from the 2nd level into the 3rd level, okay, which is sort of from like the lower 2 levels into the upper 2 levels, that increase from 2 to 3 is huge. It is a major life changer. So people will automatically notice their sleep has changed. They may be more prone to headaches, light noise sensitivity, hypersensitive to other people's emotions, telepathic. You may want to socially isolate. You're hypersensitive even to objects and atmospheres. All kinds of things will happen. But what most people notice is that they become more psychic, mediumistic, and empathic, which means you can manipulate energy. Okay, so you have more healing ability and opportunity to manipulate groups of people or situations. So we want to remember, with an increase in empathic ability, that originally when research was done on empaths, they studied them because they thought they were psychics. They thought empathic ability was something a small portion of psychics had. So when people are out there spreading misinformation these days saying that's not connected, if you're an empath, that has nothing to do with psychic ability, it has nothing to do with mediumistic ability. It always has. Everyone knew this from the beginning of research, okay? It absolutely is connected. You can't have an increase with empathic ability without an increase in psychic and mediumistic abilities. Again, check out the empathic awareness class that Paul posted here in the comment section. All right, number 4, pregnancy and childbirth. Ladies, if you thought that your postpartum depression, like, never left, was just something that absolutely caused for you to change your life in a like revolutionary way, it was something you never really came out of, you just kind of adapted to, if you felt that during your pregnancy, your ability to predict events, your prophecy, your wild, vivid dreams, your mediumistic abilities, your ability to communicate with spirits from the other side was something that just sort of came along with your pregnancy, it wasn't. It was permanent. That is a permanent change that you will need to adapt to as you go forward. Now, here's the kicker. It doesn't just increase with the pregnancy. Once the baby's born, it increases again. And sometimes that second increase is even bigger than the first one. So every time you have a child, you level up several times over, and it can be very, very intense. Okay, sometimes even misdiagnosed as psychosis. And while I'm not here to prescribe or diagnose, and I believe there can be mental illnesses and things like this, without looking here at the intuition, we can't really understand where the premonitions are coming from, where the predictions or the paranoia or the voices, the messages that you're receiving, where is it all coming from? Okay, so we have to get to the root of the issue. I always say this, I can sit next to someone in an infirmary or in a hospital, and if they have dementia, if they're schizophrenic, if they're at the end of their life, whatever it is, I can hear the same things that they're hearing as a medium. I just understand it, and I know how to protect myself from it. I'm not overwhelmed by it because I've learned to cope. Okay, so pregnancy and childbirth can be a lot like that. Overwhelming, double floodgate of intuitive increase. Okay, number 5, the Ultradian cycle. The Ultradian cycle is a time in every human being when they shift from the left to the right side of their brain. This happens involuntarily every hour and a half for 20 minutes. It will hold steady on the right side of your brain. They used to study this and think it was something people with schizophrenia had. They thought maybe it was something that people with severe bipolar disorder had. And nowadays we understand more about this cycle and that everybody has it. So when you're going through the Ultradian cycle, you should learn yours. You're going to have, of course, more vivid dreams if you're asleep. But if you're at work or you're driving, you're going to notice that your energy level changes. You become very relaxed. You shift into the intuitive right side of your brain. You may become more creative. We usually see a slowing of the heart rate. The breathing will slow down. A lot of people can't breathe out of one side of their nose, random things like this. And what you do during that time is you receive messages from the spirits around you, from the universe, and a lot of prophecy answers and healing messages to problems that you're having will kick in during that time. So we want to maximize our Ultradian cycle. Number 6, you will have an increase with your intuitive intelligence in all 3 categories, psychic, mediumistic, and empathic, if you suffer from a significant amount of trauma. So those of us that grew up in abusive households, maybe we were neglected as children, or maybe you went through something traumatizing. We're looking at the school systems and how that passes down from generation to generation. If you're, dealing as a marginalized person or a minority, that trauma will pass down. Even as you grow up, say you get into a romantic partnership with a narcissist or a sociopath, that's huge trauma. So we're talking about almost like relational trauma, okay, environmental trauma. It can also happen, I saw this a lot with COVID, when people suffered from job loss, financial distress, the threat of having their home taken away from them, right? We also saw intuitive intelligence increase because of that. So COVID was a huge trigger. Okay, but it can also happen from other things like a hurricane, a tornado, a flood, fire, any kind of a disease or an illness, a car accident, trauma. Let's look at number 7. If you go under anesthesia, or you have surgery, even something as simple as having a tooth removed, your wisdom teeth removed, or something like this, you can go under and come out a very, very different person. Now, a lot of people experience this change and get confused. They may think that they have a walk-in, which is one of the free mini classes we have coming up here, I believe, in August, okay? A walk-in, which is where you're sort of switching out souls. And they can get very dramatic, okay? Things that are more rare like that, they can mistake something like this for that. Because your personality does change in an instant, and it never goes back. And it's usually an increase, okay, with your abilities here. Now, let's look also at number 8, okay? Drug use or drinking. Now, a lot of people do this in a productive way. Maybe you go through some kind of, tribal ceremony, or maybe you want to become woke, and so you try something like mushrooms, or, people will use peyote to be able to reconnect with the ancestors and their spirit and their higher mind in the universe. There are productive ways, not that I'm promoting drug use, but there are productive ways to get involved with certain drugs that are safer, but most people aren't doing it that way. Most people are getting high to be high, and they're abusing the high, and they're in disharmony with the universe. Alcohol would be a great example of that. Yes, it feels great, but it is so toxic to your system that it's really just opening up doors to paranormal problems. So a lot of people will say, well, I can't read my clients unless I have a couple glasses of wine. That is a terrible idea, okay? And this is for everyone. I don't care if I sound judgmental. That is a terrible idea. If you have to use drugs to alter your state, and you're using toxic drugs to do so, you're opening the gateway for disaster, paranormal problems, something that could become an attachment or a possession for you, for the client. We need to keep the energy clean. And if you can't connect, sorry, sister, you can't connect. That's it. You need to clean up your act. There are blocks and options to be removed. We don't want to do that through drug use or alcohol to start giving spiritual readings and advice to people, okay? So we need to be careful, but it is true that you become far more psychic and even mediumistic and empathic when you are high or you are drunk. And that's why we see a lot of people become possessed during that time or have blackouts. Okay. So let's look at number 9. A near-death experience. I love this one. It is so bizarre to me. I'm always super fascinated to work with a client or a student who's had a near-death experience. This can also happen for those of you that were born intuitive. So when someone is born intuitive, often we saw the cord around the neck, or that baby just almost didn't make it. So you're basically born into this world a level 4 empath, super psychic, super mediumistic, and you never had a day in your life where you weren't like that, okay? You do run the risk if you have a child who went through this, or if you are an adult, but this happened to you, you run the risk at about 5-6 years old getting misdiagnosed with things like ADD. And then it increases from there, bipolar disorder and another diagnoses and another diagnoses after that. And it really could have just been this, okay? We're not surrounded by enough people to teach us how to deal with the extreme intelligence after a near-death experience. But if you are one of these people, I would highly recommend you check out my psychic mediumship course. Paul, if you could put that in, psychicmediumshipcourse.com. And number 10, okay, I believe that we naturally increase every 5 to 6 years. I've watched patterns of people over the course of my entire life, and I've noticed that this theme seems to carry on with everyone. So I would expect that if you can look back on the last time in life where you had a major increase with your abilities, and it wasn't triggered by one of these other things. It just sort of came out of nowhere. That was probably your 5 to 6 year increase. You're going to want to add on another 5 to 6 years and be prepared for your next one. Right now, why do we have these? We are going to get to your questions and comments here in a second. And Paul, I don't know if you got from members earlier, but now might be a good time to check that as well. Okay, why do we have these increases? Well, for the same reason you outgrew your shoes when you were 4 years old. For the same reason you don't still want to be living in your mom's house, for the same reason we don't want to stay with the same career, our entire lives. We maybe want to switch it up at some point. Growth. Okay, growth. Why does this happen? Because it's a natural part of the human process. We've just lost touch with our roots. So we believe it's bad, or, it's dangerous in some way. It's mental illness, or it's of the devil, so we've been brainwashed. And we don't understand that it's part of our evolution, and that mankind has become such a toxic cesspool collaboration because we're not abiding by the laws of the universe and our intuition anymore. Okay. So why does it happen? So that you can heal yourself, so that you can develop yourself, so that you can develop spiritually, so that you could be connected to your ancestors and guides and God and the universe, and ultimately go out and give the help, your wisdom, your healing abilities to others and help uplift others. Okay. So it's also, I believe, to fulfill your life contract. Everybody signed a contract before they came to Earth, and you're supposed to be abiding within that life contract, staying on that path. And without understanding how to use our intuition, we are typically off that path. Okay, so life contract readings, Paul put that in the comments. That's something you're going to want to understand. Why are you here? And how does this intuition help you to achieve your goals that you signed on to? I would recommend to everyone that you learn the lost language and use it. Psychic mediumship course here at the Academy. Learn the difference between psychic ability, empathic ability, mediumistic ability. What are your clairs? How do the different kinds of spirits in the universe communicate? And what the purpose to all of this, so that it's not just kind of randomly coming in at different times. You don't really understand it or know what to do with it. We can piece it all together and put it to good use. Okay. Paul, do we have questions or comments coming in?
Yeah, we have a few comments. A lot of people were, agreeing with, oh, that's so me, and that explains a lot. So they've gone through it. Crystal says that her boyfriend had a near-death experience. She said, so fascinating, but he doesn't know much because he was still a kid, or he was a kid. Still very cool.
So Crystal's boyfriend, who had a near-death experience as a child, probably doesn't even really know that he had that, because he's lived his entire life from that other perspective, being spiritually in tuned, intuitively connected. His parents may have noticed some difference with him if he was old enough during that time, but often parents also overlook the changes, or they think maybe it's something negative, a side effect. Yeah.
Okay. Peace on Earth Soaps says, I was born with the umbilical cord around my neck.
Okay. So when we're born with something like that, or like the umbilical cord around your neck, or a lot of children today, and I believe this is why they're kind of leading the way in the future, we have a lot of preemies. And my situation, I had a lung problem, and so I almost was lost to the lung infection and a fever when I was an infant. And so I don't know that I was born this way, but shortly after, that quickly became my existence. And I think we all have a similar reality, and we're finally starting to come forward and find each other and understand that even if our tribal roots have been lost, to genocide, or we're trying to recover our path or our roots and reconnect, or we just feel really disassociated, from the rest of the world, like we live on an island, we don't understand human nature and why it's so toxic. We've been struggling for a long, long time. And I think that we're starting finally to come together and understand that in this intuitive intelligence, it is something that we're all born with, but some people have it to a heightened degree, and we're meant to lead the way in this healing process. And it's really exciting because we can all get in touch with this lost language and then go and find God on your own path. There is no one God. There is no one true, answer to all of this. It's not about religion. It's about tuning into the light and allowing it to lead you in blind faith so that you can find your path to God and to truth and to the universe and what this means for you on your journey. It's an amazing thing.
We have one from Kim who says that my near-death experience was my awakening.
Good. So, especially when we have a near-death experience and we're older, a lot of people say that whether it's, it's a car accident, it's a hurricane, it's whatever, something in a surgery, we have a change in the way that we view ourselves, in the way that we view the world, and in the way that we view the afterlife. And we understand that things are more connected than ever. So people come out of this so different. And I think it's really important that we stop and we say, not everyone has this experience. It is significant. How am I meant to use it in my life contract, on my path in life? Because it is absolutely part of your life's work. There's no doubt. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, it was a pleasure doing this one with you. Hope you enjoyed. For those of you on TikTok, if this was acting up, go to YouTube at Ask Ivy, and this will be published in just a bit. If you guys want to check out the rest of the free mini classes I've been putting out, the quarantine series, you can hit the playlist button in the top to see all of those. What is next week's class?
Next week is the art of Old Soul Syndrome, the art of maturity.
Okay, so next week, Tuesday, 9:30, back here, Old Soul Syndrome, the art of maturity. Are you an old soul? Do you have problems connecting with other people or understanding a lot of other people? Have you always been mature beyond your years? When you were little, did they call you the little old lady, the little old man? Do you have an understanding about how we're all one and feel out of place in today's world? Yes.
I screwed up. That's on the 20th.
Oh, that's
So
on the 20th, which
Yeah.
is also a Tuesday, though.
Correct.
Okay.
So next week is over responsibility and survivor's guilt.
Next week. Okay, so let's try that one more time. So next week is over responsibility and survivor's guilt. Do you overgive? Do you not know how to stay in your lane? Do you have a lot of trouble detaching and disconnecting from people, allowing them to live their lives, or even to walk away from relationships and situations when you really should? Or are you being a victim and letting it take you down? Let's watch out for martyrdom and things like that. So that'll be next week. Thanks so much for the donations, guys. Everybody, please give this a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Spirit.